All right. All right. So this is the Wednesday lecture for the wrong class. Let me get the right slides up. That would not be good. These are not the slides for this class. Huh. Well, I will fix that. I fix. That we made for an interesting lecture, that's for sure. Ah, that looks better. Share, and we're gonna have this going. There we go. That's more appropriate. Okay, this is the Wednesday lecture for Philosophy 4900. And I would like to make this screen full size, but my computer is not cooperating with me. There we go. Okay. We're going to start by talking about job sharing. Your textbook by Byers and Stanberry, they defined job sharing as when two or more employees perform the work of a full-time position, each taking part of the total workload for the job. So instead of hiring one full-time employee, you hire two part-time employees. So basically, job sharing is just part-time employment, and benefits to the employee can be reduced stress. They have a higher quality of output in their work. They can have greater productivity, and there's reduced absenteeism, and there are flexible work hours. Now, the companies themselves, they also benefit by having the necessary talent pool for them to conduct their operations without spending more on compensation and benefit packages. Now, is this just a way for organizations to get out of paying health care for its employees? Maybe it is. Um, I'm not exactly sure that I'm convinced job sharing is a good approach. I can see some employees wanting to work part-time and being happy with it, but I think most of the time you're going to find employees that are going to want a full-time job. They're going to want the benefits and the full compensation package. Now, there are some major issues with job sharing. Not all industries, fields, or positions can sustain removing full-time employee positions. Such like healthcare. You're not going to find doctors and neurosurgeons and nurses that are going to be able to do this. This is not going to be a good format for them. You're going to want people in full-time positions in those areas. You're going to want them to be compensated fairly, and you're going to want them to have full accountability for the work that they do. There might be some increased coordination problems in trying to get your team that used to have 5 people on it. Now you have 10 people because you have part-time positions filling each full-time position. You're going to have difficulty coordinating to make sure the work is done. Coordinating meetings because everyone's off kind of doing their own thing in this scenario. Not all employees work well with others, and this model requires them to collaborate effectively. Personality types. If you take an organizational behavior, you know that not everybody is going to mesh well on a team. That part of being a team leader is making sure that you select the right individuals with the right personality traits that are going to work together to accomplish the work that you need to do. I see we have. Okay, no worries. No worry, Donovan. No worry. Um, so you might lose out on that collaboration. And then, of course, you have the 2 Mondays effect, which the authors pointed out. And this is when instead of having one full-time employee experiencing the Monday blues, the Monday blahs, now you have at least 2 people in that same position experiencing the Monday blahs, which reduces productivity that day of the week. And so the increase you may see in productivity, you might be losing right after a holiday right after the weekend, things like that. So you really got to weigh out, is this going to be advantageous and is it going to be sustainable in the long term? One of these keys is going to work. I guess not. Now, there are some ethical issues with this model, this job sharing model. Byers and Stanberry pointed out that hiring multiple part-time employees for the same position primarily benefits the company instead of considering the employees themselves. So you're not actually feeding into employee motivation. You're not going to be helping them to feel like they're fully engaged. For this model to work, the correct job or jobs must be selected, since not all jobs within a company are conducive to this approach. Law enforcement, medical personnel, there are a number of positions that just would not work with the job sharing model. And the leadership must work with the newly created team to establish a written, not a writing, but a written agreement between the employees to facilitate their collaboration and mutual determination to reach the goal of the position. So from a leadership perspective, there is more work now that needs to be done to effectively guide and lead this team of individuals. Let's now turn our attention to flex time. The authors explained that flex time allows employees to set their daily schedule. This led to the compressed work week at some organizations, which is a shorter work week or reducing the hours during particular seasons. Some places a work week might not be Monday through Friday. It might be Thursday through Sunday. And of course, that is going to be very industry specific and kind of nuanced to that particular organization. Here, the leadership must understand the goals for each position involved in flex time. If they do not consider the objectives for that position, then employees could file discrimination charges against them. And so flex time does open up a window of opportunity for your staff to file discrimination charges against you. You need to be careful about that. To subvert that problem, you need to make sure that the goals are clearly defined, the objectives are clearly delineated, and that the employees know what they're supposed to be doing. Now, there is a bias in flex time. The authors noted that research has found that many managers and leaders are biased against employees wanting to start later in the day. So that means if you got 5 employees and you're a more traditional manager and you have this bias, and one of your employees asks if they could start at 10 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. like the rest of the crew, you have a bias against that. It's almost like you think they're getting away with something, when in all reality, the employee that's requesting the flex time, they may have to take their children to the hospital, not hospital, but daycare. They might have some things that they need to get done. And then they come to work, they come in at 10, and they don't leave at the same time as everyone else. They stay for the additional hours to put in their full shift. So maybe that bias really is just a leftover appendage, so to say, from a bygone era of leadership and management. Now we're going to look at the access economy. That's kind of a fancy way of wording this, but you understand what it is here in a minute. The textbook defined the access economy as being a resource circulation system in which customers participate on both sides of a transaction as both providers and obtainers of resources. The transaction is usually facilitated by a third party acting as a go-between. This model is known as peer-to-peer or P2P. This is quite popular in the housing market through like timeshare properties. So if you know about timeshares, you know that you don't own the property, but you pay into that property and you can use it for like 2 weeks a year. Of course, you have to schedule that time because there are other people who have invested into that property and they also have the right to use it during their 2 weeks out of that year. So this is a way of being able to have a place in the Bahamas and not having to pay the price of having a place in the Bahamas. So there is a benefit to it, but once again, there's going to be some things you got to be careful with. When we particularly look at this from a business ethics point of view, if I'm the customer and I'm both the one selling the resource to myself and the one buying the resource for myself, who am I accountable to? And since the voice of the customer is so important in business, whose voice do I listen to? My own? That's almost what it would seem like. Now, if you're familiar also with any of these multi-level network things like Amway or anything like that, you know that basically it's a form of a peer-to-peer sort of thing where you buy products from yourself. Now, I'm not a fan of multi-level marketing. It literally destroyed my last marriage. But with that aside, what do you think? Not that I'm looking for answers per se, but I want you thinking, where do you stand on this peer-to-peer, the access economy? Timeshares to me make sense, but selling myself the resources I need to live a daily life and then being both the customer and the retailer, to me, opens up some areas that I have a lot of questions about. Byers and Stanberry provided some examples of the access economy. There's Airbnb, Relay Rides, Uber, Lyft, and TaskRabbit. So not everything is going to be a multi-level scheme. Not everything is going to be a timeshare scheme. Some things, I mean, I used to work for Uber, and it was interesting because I was an employee, but I was also kind of my own boss. It was put me into a weird situation. I wanted to represent the company I worked for effectively, but more than that, I was really trying to represent myself. So each time I had a passenger, I tried to provide good customer service because I thought, well, this is investing into myself. So these companies fall under the online platform economy. So while they are access economy businesses, they are an online platform, and that is a form of economy. Now, there are some issues that face the access economy. Byers and Stanberry pointed out that many access economy businesses face regulatory issues. These include tax concerns. Who gets the tax bill every year? When I worked for Uber, I did not get a W-2. I did have an earnings statement, and there was, I think, there was a type of a W-2, but it wasn't what we're used to. And it wasn't like they were saying, hey, we've paid this much tax. They're saying, no, this is how much we paid this person. And then I was responsible to fill out my taxes, to report that income, and then make sure the correct amount of taxes were taken out. So I was paying the tax bill. Some jurisdictions have enacted legislation or ordinances based on health and safety issues. Matter of fact, there are some areas, and New York City used to be like this, I don't know if they still are, where Uber is not permitted. There are no Uber rides in cities like that. Okay, maybe now in New York City there are, but at one point they did not allow it. And it's because the taxi cab companies really raised the alarm and they said, listen, we have people already providing this service. They're professionals, they're trained, there's insurance. If there's an accident, everything's taken care of. And so the city opted to side on their side, the taxi cab driver side. Now, ethically, local, state, and federal governments must protect both the rights of businesses and the consumers. You see, if I'm in government, my responsibility isn't just to businesses. It's not just to the consumers. It's literally to both. And so I have to make sure that there is fair and equitable treatment going on between the businesses and the customers, that everyone is being treated fairly. So it is in the purview of government to make rulings about the access economy. If they feel that something is not safe or if something is shady or unethical, they can step in. The textbook also noted that this business model, meaning the access economy model, has impacted how organizations obtain their startup funding. So your initial capital in order to start your new entrepreneurial venture, that has changed. The traditional approach has been to make initial public offerings or IPOs or secure private funding. But in the access economic model, the capital is raised using a form of crowdsourcing or crowdfunding. Byers and Stanberry claim that all businesses should be able to access capital in a perfect world of business ethics. In a perfect world, in an ethically sound world, all businesses starting off should be able to access capital. That's not necessarily the case, but idealistically, the authors pointed that out. Now, there is a problem with crowdsourcing capital. Byers and Stanberry noted that crowdfunding options such as GoFundMe are not regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC. This presents numerous legal and ethical issues in selling shares. You can't sell shares in your company using a crowdfunding platform such as GoFundMe because you cannot meet the regulatory specifications that the SEC has in place involving investments. The Biden administration allowed emerging growth companies, EGCs, to use crowdfunding through the Jobs Act, but this is sure to change with the new administration. And I'm not just saying this. Anytime there's an administration change, there are going to be changes in the business world. Legislation does change, and it's almost on a every 4-year kind of basis. And so if you're in business, you've got to keep up with that to make sure that you're not falling into the illegal zone. So now this brings us logically to the gig economy. Byers and Stanberry defined the gig economy as an environment in which individuals and businesses contract with independent workers for short-term assignments, engagement, or projects, offering few or no benefits beyond compensation. While, yes, Uber and Lyft would be technically considered gig economy, the way they're structured makes them more of an access economy sort of model. Because in a gig economy, if I want to do consulting, which I've done before, I can do that on like, what is that, Fiverr? But there is no benefits other than I get paid basically piecework. So if I get paid to write a policy, which I've done before, and I write a policy for an organization, I get the money for that, and that's it. I don't have any longevity or nothing like that. So there is a benefit. If I need extra cash, I can do that. But there's a downside. You don't have job security. Okay, so this also includes freelance work. There are a number of different types of employment relationships, and this is a graph from the textbook. You have employees on one side and non-employees, meaning contractors, freelancers, gig workers on the other. Employees, full-time, they have a single employer, they get benefits. Employment taxes are split between the employee and the employer. And so if I've got an employee, I contribute to their taxes, and I also will deduct taxes off of their pay, depending on how they fill out their paperwork. Now, the non-employees, they're part-time. They could have multiple employers or clients. There's no benefits. Employment taxes must be paid entirely by the employee. Freelance workers, there are estimated to be around 55 million freelance workers in America. That's as of 2018. And this accounts for approximately 33% of the workforce. This model provides greater flexibility for workers, but they do not receive health benefits and must pay their and the employer's share of their employment taxes. This can account up to 15.3% of their total earnings. And so when I was working in the gig economy, it was incumbent upon me to cover that. So I had to make sure I had money to pay my taxes. And sometimes people don't think about that. I need to set aside 15 to 16% of my money for income tax. And when it comes time for taxes, they don't have it. Now they're in a pickle. Freelance workers and tax status. Byers and Stanberry, they mentioned that a freelancer is classified by the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, as being a de facto employee and must receive a W-2 form annually. But like I said, that W-2 form doesn't necessarily reflect. When I worked for Uber, it showed what I earned, but there was no tax withholding. So once again, it's not, in my experience, it wasn't a full W-2, but it was a W-2 form. In my PhD dissertation, which I did looking into a facet of the gig economy, I found that the gig economy is one of the oldest professions on the planet. It goes back, it's as old as agriculture, potentially even older. Um, the gentlemen's club industry hires dancers using this freelancer gig economy sort of approach. My dissertation was looking at gentlemen's clubs. I was looking to see if equity, diversity, and inclusion was being practiced by the management towards the dancers. It was a fascinating study, but it really taught me a lot also about we've had the gig economy through freelance work and through things like that for years, millennia. Byers and Stanbury noted that robotics, now we're looking at robotics, we're thinking futuristically here, which we don't have to think too far out in the future nowadays because we have robotics at work now as we speak. They noted that robotics provides companies with machines to do jobs historically done by individuals. This includes manufacturing, surgery, numerous things, okay? Globally, robotics has taken approximately 800 million jobs, which accounts for 20% of the global workforce. So 20% of the global workforce lost their job due to robotics. There is a price for innovation. Moving into the future does cost. It does mean that some people are going to have to figure out what to do for work now. But that's a lot of people, 800 million people. When we think of that number, that's huge. Ultimately, wealthier nations like America and Germany will have around 1/3 of their workforce impacted by robotics in the future. That's a lot. We got a plan for that. This will impact approximately a quarter to half of the American workforce by 2030. But what will be the future for these affected employees? The textbook pointed out that around 20 million of these employees will undergo retraining. They'll learn a new skill so they can take a job that robots are not doing. But is it ethical to allow technology to displace such a great percentage of the global workforce? Let's just even bring it down to one nation. Is it ethical for that nation to allow robotics to displace that many workers? Once again, there is no clear answer to it. I'm just trying to get you to think in a philosophical way, in an ethical way about this situation, because the future is yours. I'm 52. The future is not mine anymore. It's yours. Byers and Stanbury cited the McKinsey report and claimed that the following positions would be most affected by this change: machine operators, factory workers, and food service employees. There is a McDonald's that I heard about, I think it was up in Seattle, that had gone automated. Basically, they didn't need a workforce anymore. But will this change also impact, let's say, transportation jobs due to self-driving cars? Of course it will. A self-driving car is in the same family as a robot doing a machine. It's a machine performing a task. So yes, it's in the same category. When I was in Austin driving Uber, I remember the first time I saw it was weird. I saw this car and it had this weird looking dome thing on top, and there was nobody driving it. But it was driving down the road, making turns, stopping at traffic lights, everything. It was weird at first, but that's the future we're headed toward, which means that even Uber drivers are going to become obsolete. Taxi cab drivers will be obsolete. The textbook further discussed that the human interaction professions, such as any position requiring human-to-human interaction, would be the least affected. Jobs that are safe from this change include medical professionals, lawyers, teachers. At least professors are safe, right? Social workers, and even bartenders. While the food service industry can have automation, in bartending, doesn't look like they're going to have any machines doing that as of now, at least. Why is that? Well, one, you have customers requesting something, and then you fill their order. But there's the legal and ethical aspect of you cannot overserve people. If somebody's already demonstrating that they're drunk, you are not allowed by law to give them another drink. And so you have to have a human being there to make that decision for accountability purposes. The concession reached by buyers, the conclusion reached by Byers and Stanberry is that the American government, among others, will have to face a significant increase in the unemployment rate or develop legislation to combat this issue before it becomes significant. So a competitive advantage, I mention it fairly frequently because it's important. A company can have a competitive advantage, a state, a nation, a region of nations can have a competitive advantage. We are not always going to hold the same competitive advantage in forever, in perpetuity. We have a competitive advantage. At some point in time, somebody else is going to take that competitive advantage. Either they're going to become better at something, or we focus on other stuff and leave that competitive advantage behind and other people pick it up. Case in point, manufacturing. During World War II, the United States, they were the manufacturing powerhouse for the Allies. Just a couple decades later, Japan becomes the manufacturing powerhouse. Think about this. What did the United States do? We still had manufacturing, but we weren't focusing on it as much. We were focusing on new technology. We were focusing on, I would say, improvements in banking and different things like that. So the competitive advantage that we had in manufacturing, we let it go. Japan picked it up while we attained other forms of competitive advantage. And so we're not going to be without a competitive advantage. So we're going to have things that people can do for employment. We just got to figure out what it's going to be, because people going to school have got to be able to train properly, whether it's college or trade school or whatever. You got to plan for your future. What am I going to do? Well, if I can't do that because robots are going to be taking it over, what should I focus on? That's why this is so important. Now, artificial intelligence. The textbook mentioned that industries like banking, financial advising, and the sales of securities and managing stock portfolios have already been impacted by AI. However, a holistic approach to implementing AI can help improve productivity and lower costs, unlocking more creative jobs and creating new growth opportunities. So in short, a company can enter into using AI, but if they do it in a good, sound, ethical, thought-through manner, they can actually use AI to do things that are just so repetitive and just so kind of basic, freeing up these individuals to be more creative, to do more innovating. KPMG, that's a consultant firm, reports that close to 50% of the tasks currently carried out by humans could be replaced with AI in the future. Wow. So half of the jobs people do can be replaced by AI. What will we do? Is AI ethical? That is a loaded question nowadays, because you got people that say yes it is, people that say no that it isn't. I am kind of still on the fence, saying I see how AI can be unethical. I see how that if we put safeguards up, it could be ethical. So I think it depends on what we as a species do with AI over the next few decades. Byers and Stanberry noted that clients and customers should be notified when AI is working with them instead of a human being. So in other words, if I think I'm talking to on the phone or on the internet a real live human being, somehow, some way, should be some notification that lets me know this is AI that's working with me, not a person. Ethics is going to have to tackle this issue. Remember that legislation, it follows ethics. So as we develop a comprehensive set of business ethics, legislation then can begin to develop to curb the negative side effect of the newer technology. That is the lecture, but don't go anywhere yet, because I did say that I had some videos I wanted us to watch. Let me just get them queued up here. We can get them queued up. Okay, and let me enlarge that. Okay, let me fix this problem because somebody, me, made a mistake. Okay, so we did talk about company towns. So we're going to watch a video on company towns and a video on AI and ethics. So get ready for two videos.
Be free and flexible and creative was really essential to what I wanted to make, and I didn't find a platform that did that other than Wix.
Corporations built cities, the rise and fall of American company towns. Imagine a place where your employer owns your home, your grocery store, your entertainment venues, and even your local government. This was the reality of company towns. Corporate-built communities that once thrived across the United States. Designed to house workers and control nearly every aspect of their lives, these towns were both economic engines and social experiments. While they offered stability and convenience, they also raised serious concerns about worker exploitation and corporate overreach. The rise of company towns emerged in the 19th century as industries like coal mining, steel production, and textile manufacturing expanded into remote areas. Without existing infrastructure to support a workforce, corporations built entire towns from the ground up. Workers were provided with company-owned homes, schools, churches, and stores, all within walking distance of their jobs. Why were company towns created? 1. Location, location, location. Many industries operated in remote regions where no housing or services existed, requiring companies to create communities to attract workers. 2. Worker stability. Companies wanted a dependable labor force, and company-owned housing and services kept workers tied to their jobs. 3. Productivity and control. Employers believed that by controlling workers' environments, they could reduce unionization efforts, prevent strikes, and increase productivity. Some of the most well-known company towns included Pullman, Illinois, built by the Pullman Company in the 1880s to house railroad car factory workers. Hershey, Pennsylvania. Founded by Milton Hershey in 1903, offering employees affordable homes and high-quality amenities. Gary, Indiana. Established by U.S. Steel in 1906 to support its steel mills. Lowell, Massachusetts. A planned textile mill town that became a hub for industrial growth. The lure and the limits of company. Town life. Life in a company town had its perks. Workers had access to stable housing, local schools, and health care, luxuries that were often unavailable in surrounding areas. Some towns, like Hershey, Pennsylvania, were known for their high-quality living conditions with parks, libraries, and recreational centers provided by the company. However, there was a darker side. Because the company controlled nearly everything, workers had little say in their own lives. Many were paid in scrip, a company-issued currency only accepted at company-owned stores, often at inflated prices. Employers also had the power to evict workers from their homes if they were fired or engaged in union activity. This lack of independence led to unrest and, in some cases, violent clashes between workers and corporate leadership. One of the most infamous examples of company-town tensions was the Pullman strike of 1894, where workers protested wage cuts without corresponding rent reductions. The strike escalated into a national railway shutdown, prompting federal intervention. The incident highlighted the flaws of company towns, proving that corporate control over workers' personal lives could fuel resentment rather than loyalty. The decline of company towns. By the mid-20th century, company towns began to disappear. Several factors contributed to their decline: labor unions and workers' rights, As labor laws strengthened and union power grew, companies could no longer justify controlling workers' lives. Urbanization and infrastructure. As cities expanded and transportation improved, workers had more freedom to live independently. Economic shifts. Industries changed, and many company towns collapsed when businesses shut down or relocated. Some former company towns transitioned into independent municipalities, while others became ghost towns. Pullman, Illinois, for example, was eventually annexed into Chicago, while towns like Thurmond, West Virginia, faded into history after the collapse of coal mining. Legacy of company towns. Though largely a relic of the past, company towns left a lasting impact. Their history reflects the balance between corporate power and worker rights, an issue that remains relevant today. Modern companies, such as tech giants building self-contained campuses, echo some of the same themes seen in company towns, raising new debates about corporate influence over employees' personal lives. The story of America's company towns is a reminder that when corporations build cities, they shape not just economies, but entire ways of life, for better or worse. Would you live in a modern company town? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.
I think I just won my taxes. Oh yeah? I just switched.
So as you can see, the idea of these corporate campuses, it's not new. It's just a revision of the old company town model. So now let's go ahead and watch that one last video that we have here. And that is going to be on AI and ethics. Hopefully, if I can get my screen to cooperate. Here we go. Okay. This is the one I wanted. Okay, let me make sure.
Hello everyone. Welcome
There we
to
go.
Business School 101. As artificial intelligence continues to revolutionize the business landscape, it's crucial to examine the ethical considerations accompanying its integration. In this video, we'll delve into the ethical implications of AI in business, focusing on key areas such as discrimination, transparency, privacy, accountability, and the ethical use of AI technologies. Section 1: Bias and Discrimination. AI systems learn from data, and if this data contains biases, the AI can inadvertently perpetuate or even amplify these biases, leading to unfair outcomes. For example, in 2014, Amazon developed a machine learning tool to streamline job application reviews. However, the tool discriminated against women due to training data predominantly from men's resumes. This case underscores the importance of addressing bias in AI systems. To address this issue, here are a few strategies companies can apply. First, diverse data collection. Ensure that training data encompasses a wide range of demographics to minimize inherent biases. Second, regular audits. Implement routine checks to identify and rectify biased outcomes in AI systems. Third, inclusive development teams. Assemble diverse teams to develop and monitor AI systems, bringing multiple perspectives to the forefront. Section 2: Transparency and Explainability. Many AI models, especially deep learning systems, operate as black boxes, making it challenging to understand how they arrive at specific decisions. For example, food delivery platforms like Uber Eats and Deliveroo use algorithms to manage couriers' work assignments and pay. Couriers have raised concerns about the lack of transparency in these black box algorithms, which determine their earnings and workloads without clear explanations. This opacity leads to feelings of exploitation and mistrust among workers. To address this concern, companies can apply the following strategies. First, develop explainable AI. Invest in AI models that provide clear, understandable decision-making processes. Second, clear communication. Inform users when they are interacting with AI systems and provide insights into how decisions are made. Third, documentation. Maintain comprehensive records of AI system development and decision-making processes to enhance accountability. Section 3: Privacy and Data Protection. AI systems often require vast amounts of data, raising concerns about user privacy and data security. For example, Clearview AI, an American facial recognition company, scraped billions of images from social media without users' consent to build its database. This practice led to significant privacy violations and legal challenges, highlighting the risks associated with unauthorized data collection. To address this issue, companies can implement the following strategies. First, data minimization. Collect only the data necessary for the AI system's function. Second, anonymization. Implement techniques to anonymize personal data, protecting individual identities. Third, robust security measures. Employ advanced security protocols to safeguard data against breaches. Section 4. Accountability and liability. When AI systems make erroneous or harmful decisions, it can be difficult to ascertain who is liable, the developers, the operators, or the AI itself. For example, the use of AI in predictive policing has led to wrongful arrests due to algorithmic errors. In such cases, determining accountability becomes challenging, as it's unclear whether the blame lies with the developers of the AI, the law enforcement agencies using it, or the data that trained it. Strategies to mitigate this concern include the following. First, define responsibility. Establish clear lines of accountability within the organization for AI system outcomes. Second, legal compliance. Ensure AI systems adhere to existing laws and regulations, and stay updated on evolving legal standards related to AI. Third, ethical guidelines. Develop and implement ethical guidelines governing AI use within the organization. Section 5. Employment and workforce impact. The automation capabilities of AI can lead to workforce displacement, raising ethical concerns about job losses and economic inequality. For example, the introduction of AI-powered chatbots in customer service has led to reduced demand for human agents. Companies have reported significant cost savings, but this comes at the expense of employment opportunities for customer service representatives. To reduce these negative impacts, companies can take the following steps. First, reskilling programs. Invest in training programs to help employees adapt to new roles alongside AI systems. Second, human-AI collaboration. Design AI systems that augment human capabilities rather than replace them. Third, transparent communication. Keep employees informed about AI integration plans and their potential impact on roles. Section 6. Environmental impact. The rapid advancement of AI technologies has led to significant environmental concerns, particularly regarding energy consumption and carbon emissions. For instance, a study highlighted that training a single AI model can emit as much carbon as 5 cars over their lifetimes. This finding underscores the environmental impact of AI development and the need for more sustainable practices. To address this issue, companies can implement the following strategies. First, efficient algorithm design. Develop algorithms that require less computational power without compromising performance. Second, renewable energy utilization. Power data centers with renewable energy sources to reduce carbon footprints. Third, life cycle assessment. Conduct comprehensive assessments of AI systems' environmental impacts throughout their development and deployment to identify areas for improvement. Section 7. Conclusion. AI in business raises ethical concerns, including bias, transparency, privacy, accountability, job displacement, and environmental impact. Cases like Amazon's hiring bias and Clearview AI's privacy violations highlight these risks. Companies can mitigate issues through diverse data, explainable AI, strong security, legal compliance, reskilling, and sustainable practices. All right, that's all for today's topic. If you find this...
All right, so I just wanted you to get a couple videos to kind of give you a little extra information to help you with the subject. You have your discussion this week. You don't have an assignment, but you do have a discussion. Remember, the initial post is due by Friday at 11:59 p.m. Your two replies to two classmates, those are due by Sunday by 11:59 p.m. as well. So if you have any comments or questions or need any help with anything, please shoot me an email or see me Monday before or after class. You have a great day, and thank you for coming to class today. All right, I'm going to go ahead and log out here.